If you're even thinking about getting into dividend stocks, then you need to watch this video because I'm going to let you in on a few secrets. We're going to be covering 10 pros and cons of owning dividend stocks. Before we get to that, let's start with the basics. What exactly is a dividend? A dividend is basically a reward in the form of cash or stock to shareholders of a company that's distributed directly from the company's earnings. First, let's start with the cons just to mix things up a bit. First up, we have forcing a taxable event. When you own a dividend stock, regardless of whether or not you actually sell the stock, just the act of that company paying you a dividend is going to increase your tax bill. In other words, this man right here is going to come after you for a tax bill because those dividends are a form of income. But basically, one huge drawback of forcing a taxable event is that it does cripple your journey to building wealth, as opposed to maybe just holding a growth stock that doesn't pay dividends. Why pay taxes every year and then use that post-tax money when you can just hold a stock for the long haul for a much greater return and only pay taxes when you want to sell it? Next up, we have tax inefficiency or double taxation. Now, nobody actually likes to talk about this, but dividends are actually taxed twice. Yes, twice. And here's why. When you receive a dividend from a company, that company is paying you dividends from its profits after taxes, meaning that company had a gross profit, then they pay taxes on top of it, now they have a net profit, and only then are they able to distribute you money as a shareholder in the form of a dividend. So they've already went ahead and paid taxes before that money even hits your account. Once you receive the dividends, you are then taxed at an individual level. So even though you personally only pay taxes once, you've technically already paid taxes on those dividends through the corporate level. Compare this to growth stocks, where earnings are only taxed at the corporate level, and the individual investor can passively grow wealth, since instead of dividends, growth stocks typically reinvest earnings into the business to propel growth even further. This passively allows individual investors to grow their wealth without paying taxes until they sell the stock for a profit. The way I like to put it is, if you own non-dividend paying stocks, then you have full control over the taxable events. However, if you own dividend paying stocks, well, those taxable events control you. Quick pause before we get to our handy dandy tip of the day. Be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe if you enjoy videos like this. Now, this tip might be a no-brainer, but the last 2 points I made about taxation can be completely avoided if you use a Roth IRA to buy these dividend stocks. You see, in a Roth IRA account, you can contribute as much as $6,000 per year or even $7,000 if you're the age of 50 or older, and as a result, that account is sheltered from any future taxation. And the idea behind a Roth IRA is, well, for most of us, let's say we have a job, and by the time our paycheck even hits our bank account, taxes are already taken out in most cases. So when we fund a Roth IRA account, we're funding that account with post-tax money. And so anything that happens in that account as a result should never be taxed again. So whether you buy dividend stocks with your Roth IRA account, or whether you buy a stock and it grows to $1 million worth of profits, and then you sell that stock, you will never incur a tax bill in a Roth IRA account. Be sure to use a Roth IRA. Next up, we have risk exposure. As we all know, many different investments have their own risk exposure, unless of course you're talking about I-bonds, which I talk about in this video right here. Sorry, had to put a plug in there. But the gist of it is, while dividend stocks are attractive because they do provide a consistent stream of income, know that the stock price itself can actually decline, resulting in a net loss. So even though you're getting all this income in the form of dividends, the stock price itself can actually devalue to the point where it's a net loss. So just keep that in mind. Next up, we have opportunity cost. So a lot of these dividend stocks are unfortunately concentrated into only a handful of industries. You'll see that predominantly a lot of these stocks either fall into the energy sector or the pharmaceutical sector. So you as an investor might find yourself missing out on some solid gains in something like the tech sector, which doesn't seem to have a lot of dividend paying stocks. Next up, we have dividend policy updates. While many dividend paying companies elect to grow their dividends over time, know that in the event that there's an economic downfall or the business is suffering, management can just as easily not only cut dividends, but completely eliminate dividends entirely. We've seen this happen in recent times in economic downfalls, so just be aware of that. Now let's get into the pros or some advantages of owning dividend stocks, but first hit that like button and also subscribe for that YouTube algorithm. First up, we have passive income. Without a doubt, the idea of doing absolutely nothing and still getting paid for it is pretty nice. Dividends are one form of passive income where you don't have to do anything, but you continue to get these payments regularly, even in the form of monthly checks if you wanted to. Next up, we have dividend reinvestment, or the compounding effect. Many brokers actually allow you to reinvest the dividends that you get. Say, for example, that you own a $100 stock and you get a $5 dividend on that $100 stock. Well, you can actually set up your account in such a way that when you do get that $5 dividend, it automatically invests that $5 into that $100 stock. So now you have $105 worth of that stock. So in this example, now that you own 1.05 shares of a company as opposed to one share of a company, next time around when you get your dividend payout, it's likely going to be larger than your last dividend payout. That's like getting a quarterly raise at your job for doing absolutely nothing. Who doesn't love that? Next up, we have dividend stock growth or appreciation. So many dividend stocks are actually value-based companies, meaning they tend to grow value over time in the long run. So in addition to the fact that you are getting an income from these stocks in the form of dividends, you're also passively increasing your net worth because the value of these shares or stocks tends to appreciate over time. Next up, we have hedge against inflation. Most dividends actually grow over time much faster than the rate of inflation. So if dividend income is your primary income, it's very likely that this income will outpace the rate of inflation in the long run. Next up, we have preferential tax treatment. We all know receiving dividends are a form of income, and so you should be subject to paying income taxes. However, some dividends from certain stocks are actually considered qualified dividends, meaning they're not taxed at the ordinary income levels, but actually much less. This is extremely attractive because, again, you're able to redeem that income, but then not have to pay ordinary income taxes on it. Now, in order for dividends to be considered qualified, they do have to meet certain criteria, such as ownership of the stock for at least 60 to 90 days. Hopefully, these tips were helpful and you can leverage this information to become a dividend millionaire if it makes sense for you. If you think dividend stocks are right for you, then be sure to check out this video right here. Thanks for watching.